First and foremost, welcome. I hope everyone's having a wonderful evening. My name is Andrea. I'm with Juris Education. Welcome to tonight's webinar, How to Get into T14 Law Schools. Before we really get going on tonight's webinar, just a couple of housekeeping rules, so to speak. This webinar is recorded. That's always the number one question I get. So if you do pop out, you will receive a recording in your inbox within a day or two, which gives you the opportunity to go back and sort of catch up, take deeper notes, do what you got to do. Additionally, we're looking at running this webinar for about 45 minutes. That's always the number two question. We're looking at having a really solid conversation. So we're thinking about 30 minutes or so of content and then leaving about 15 minutes towards the end for that open Q&A. In the meantime, though, if you have any kind of questions for either one of our awesome panelists who will introduce themselves momentarily, drop them in the chat and we'll get to them towards the end of the presentation. Yes, please feel free to use that chat. It's your opportunity to really speak with our panelists, so to speak. Just a quick overview of what we'll be covering tonight. So we'll be chatting about the key factors that admissions committees look for, of course, in a successful application, crafting a compelling personal statement that obviously highlights your strengths and your experiences, the importance of interview prep and what goes into that and how to ace and make the most of that opportunity, tips for building a strong profile to stand out from the rest of the competition, and then how to navigate that wait list and that deferral process and what you can actually do to improve your chances of acceptance. I want to take a quick minute to talk about who we are as Juris. Whether it's your first time here or you've been on a few of our webinars, welcome. We're super excited to have you. So who are we? What do we offer? Well, Juris Education is a globally recognized law school admissions consulting firm, offering comprehensive support from test prep to law school admissions and even bar exam tutoring. With a 94% acceptance rate, our students gain entry into the top law schools in the United States. Last cycle alone, our T14 acceptance was 34%, which is almost 6 times higher than the national average of 5.7%. That means we know our stuff. We believe in starting the law school application process as early as possible. For college sophomores, we offer pre-law advising and profile development. This focuses on building each student's professional cover letter and resume to highlight their most meaningful experiences and elevate their profile. To help candidates stand out, we assist in enhancing transcripts and GPA, identifying organizations and internships, creating a timeline for LSAT and application prep, and pinpointing specific areas of interest. Our goal is to help students gain a strong foundation and understand what law schools are looking for when building a profile that sets you apart from other applicants. While our counselor supports students in providing and building their profiles, our LSAT coaches work closely with them to provide personalized one-on-one tutoring. Students take an official LSAT diagnostic test so tutors can assess their strengths and their areas of improvement. This helps create a study plan structured for the days, weeks, and of course, months ahead. We tailor our approach to each student's unique needs and schedule, providing the right assessments and lessons as they become familiar with the test, content, strategies, and format. Interim tests monitor and track progress, allowing us to modify study plans and build an upward trend leading to the official test date. On average, we see a 12-point increase with our 45 plus hours of tutoring, and we do offer a 165 LSAT score guarantee. Once we've helped build an outstanding candidate, we support and help build the perfect application. Law schools review applications holistically, and we assist with every step along the way. Our support starts with a detailed profile analysis, diving deep into the student's stats and experiences. This guides the creation of a well-balanced list of target, safety, and reach schools. We also help build strong resumes and obtain letters of recommendation from the right recommenders. Our services continue through the interview process and include waitlist strategy support and scholarship assistance until students receive their acceptances. Admissions counselors, who are also essay writing experts, will brainstorm, outline, and edit your supplemental essays and personal statements until they are perfect. These essays showcase the best aspect of our students, connecting their life journeys with the themes of every school that they happen to be applying to. Whether it's your main application or scholarship essays, we also offer unlimited edits. Overall, our goal is to build the perfect candidate and application. We use every tool in our skill set to ensure the products we create with our students stand out from the rest of the pack. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about us, our packages, we actually offer personalized free consultations via video, phone, or email. Our admissions counselors are ready and willing to help you through the process so you don't have to navigate it alone. no matter where you are in your application journey. With that being said, I'd love to pass it off to these two wonderful individuals who are your panelists tonight to introduce themselves and continue the conversation from here.
Guess I'll go first. I am on the left side, so I guess that means I should. Hi, I'm Nika. I am both an LSAT tutor and admissions consultant here with Juris. I took the LSAT twice in 2011, scored a 179 the second time, which I'm still obviously very proud of. I went to the University of Chicago Law School. After I graduated, I clerked for a bankruptcy judge in Delaware, and then I worked as a corporate bankruptcy litigator about 5 years before leaving during COVID and returning to teaching. So that's kind of my story. I'm excited to do this webinar with y'all tonight.
It's so good to be back with you again, Nika. I am Tamar. I use she, her pronouns. I am not an LSAT tutor because unlike Nika, I did not enjoy taking that test. I am an admissions consultant though, and have been consulting for a few years now and have helped dozens of students, and I love helping them. I went to Vanderbilt for undergraduate. I took 2 years off before law school. I was a Fulbright scholar in Taiwan for a year and then did AmeriCorps for another year. Went to University of Michigan for law school, and then afterwards was a Skadden Fellow for 2 years at an organization in Los Angeles, primarily working on ensuring that LGBTQ foster youth had all of their needs met and their rights weren't trampled on. So I am now a law school professor at American University in Washington, D.C. It is like week 3 of classes, so I am still figuring out how to be a professor here. But I think Mika and I would both say that we really love teaching and love working with people. And so we're so excited to be here with you all tonight.
All right, so let's just kick it off with general factors in a successful application. It goes without saying that law schools want you to prove academic excellence as much as possible. And in law school applications, that takes the form of 2 important numbers, your LSAT and your GPA. So I always emphasize to people, one of the reasons it is important to start thinking about law school early is because a strong GPA is not something you can change in your senior year, right? That is not, you can improve it, obviously, but you can't change what has happened the first 3 years. The LSAT, just as well, you should start early. Obviously, not from first day of your freshman year, the way you are thinking about your GPA, but the more time you give yourself to prepare for the LSAT, the better. It is probably the part of your admissions package that is under your most control in terms of its actual impact, right? Every point you get, I often hear the phrase, it's worth about $10,000 in scholarship money, right? Second big part, obviously, is your personal statement, right? And law schools take these very seriously. This is your chance to show admissions officers that you are, number one, the sort of person they want to be around, the sort of person that they want to have in their school, and the sort of person that they think will be a good alumni of their school. And those are really the ways you should think about it. It's not just about crafting a compelling story, it's about crafting a compelling story that provides the right message to admissions officers, and which is another good reason to, get consulting, because it really helps in terms of figuring out what they are looking for. And the last but also important thing is relevant experience, right? Working at a law firm during the summer or during the year part-time, right? Working for a judge, working for a public defender's office. There are a lot of different ways that you can volunteer within the legal profession, even as a college student. Internships you can get and things you can volunteer for, both of which will look wonderful on your resume. So if law school is something you're committed to, it's also a good idea to get actual experience in the field and meet the sort of people that you might be working with and dealing with down the road. Admissions officers also like that. They often love paralegals, just as a general rule, because paralegals know what they're getting into. And the better you can say that with your resume, the more seriously they'll take your, claim that law school is the right path for you. turn it over to you.
Thanks. So I'm going to double down on the GPA and LSAT expectations piece. Not to be annoying, but because it's really important. So if you're looking at T14 schools, I think one of the things that amazed me was when I was looking at all the T14s and you look at like the bottom 25th percentile, the 50th percentile, and the 75th percentile for GPAs, they are all so high. Like we're talking 395, 392, 389, right? Like the range is just real small. And so Mika is not kidding when we say your GPA really matters. That's not to say it needs to be a 4.0 every semester, right? We also often say you want to see an upward trajectory, right? You want to see, like, if you maybe struggled a little bit your freshman year, you were trying to figure out what your major was going to be. You were one of the million people who thought they were going to be a doctor and maybe didn't do so well in orgo and realized that you were not going to be a doctor. Those are things that admissions officers expect and know. But by end of sophomore, junior, senior year, the admissions officers want to be seeing like this person knows how to study. They figured out what classes they like. They figured out what they were doing. They had, strong study habits. They had strong testing habits. All of those things are things that should really be solidifying by the end of your law school career. And obviously, hopefully we'll be pulling your GPA up if you did have any kind of mishaps or low grades at the very beginning. LSAT scores are important. I hate to say this because I don't like standardized testing, but they matter. They really, really matter. And especially at the top law schools, again, when you're looking at the 25th, 50th, and 75th percentile, the numbers are real tight. It's like 170, 172, 174, right? Like that we're not talking a huge range. And so spending a good amount of time studying for the LSAT is time well spent. I have actually multiple friends I know who studied for multiple years and just kept cranking, working on their score, and it paid dividends. It really made a huge difference in terms of scholarship money, but also acceptances. So those are not things to snooze on or to be like, I'm a really great writer, I can write my way into a good school. I hate to tell you, everyone who's applying is generally a good writer. Your personal statement is not going to carry you all the way to a T14 if none of the other benchmarks are hit.
With all of that said, personal statements matter, right? I agree with Tamar. It's like, at the end of the day, schools care about their rankings, and rankings care about GPA and LSAT, right? So it's going to be the number one and number two thing that they prioritize. But hundreds of tie breaks happen in every school, each application cycle. People with incredibly similar stats, right? But there isn't room for every single person with that stat line. And admissions officers make decisions based on other factors now. And the biggest one is your personal statement. I said earlier that you want to make an admissions officer like you. And that genuinely is the big point. Tell a story about yourself. Tell a narrative that explains why you are going in the direction you are in life. And also constantly be demonstrating who you are as a person. And also don't be afraid of I statements. Right? This is a personal statement. This is not an academic paper, right? Saying I felt this because of this thing that happened to me and that made me want to do this as a person is powerful, right? So tell a genuine story about yourself and how you are heading in this direction. You can mix in episodes from your life that you think are particularly influential or interesting or relevant, but ultimately, you are trying to explain to them why they should let you in and why you're even there to begin with, right? So lead up to the goals, right? And almost when you're drafting, I often tell people, think about the pitch you're making at the end and then work backwards on how you can get there, right? If you want to go to law school because you really care about a certain public interest topic, right? You need to be able to justify that claim at the end of your story, right? But this is the sort of thing that is well worth working on and editing repeatedly. Don't just toss it out there at the end. I see a lot of people do that and think, oh, well, I'm just speaking from the heart. It's like there's a difference speaking from the heart and having a very well written message from the heart. So default to the latter. Turn it back over to you.
Selecting personal statement topics. I think this is something that, Mika, I imagine this is true for you. A lot of my students get really stressed about. And the first thing that I say is there's not only one right personal statement topic per person. It's not like you're mining for like only one diamond that you have like deep inside your heart and you have to find that one diamond and there's no other diamonds there, right? There are an infinite number of possible personal statement stories that you could tell. And each of them will be slightly different, right? One might highlight certain characteristics. One might highlight, will highlight different characteristics. They'll show different things, different vulnerabilities that you have, different strengths that you have, all of those things. But that doesn't mean that there is a right or a wrong personal statement. And I think people get really caught up being like, I don't know what the one topic is that I'm looking for. Don't stress. There are lots of topics. There's lots of possible personal statements. You want a story that shows growth, that shows that you have overcome challenges, and that shows some level of vulnerability, right? It's not a way that we typically write. I think many of us who have gone to school and written lots of academic papers are like, we have trouble writing we have trouble talking about our feelings. It feels like a diary, like, what am I doing? I have a number of students this season who keep writing using the word one, like one should believe. And I'm like, what is this one? Like, we're talking about you. You are the person in this personal statement. It is all about you. It is all about your struggle. It is all about the ways that you've succeeded and overcome those struggles. Not in a, conceited or cocky way, just in a way that really highlights any adversity you've gone through or things that you're proud of. Because like Mika was saying, at the end of the day, you want the admissions officer to be like, I want this person at my school. This person will make our law school better. This person will make our law school classrooms more interesting. They will add to the conversations that we're having. So any sorts of stories that show kind of a moment of that you've overcome a challenge, or where you kind of changed your mind on something, or learned to think differently about something, or I'm trying to think what else. Sometimes like a moment where you first realized that you wanted to like go into law school, or that you wanted to be a lawyer. Sometimes that moment can be an interesting moment to write about. So as the theme of what I'm saying is there's lots of possibilities. Start with kind of writing up a list of what are some things that fit the criteria I'm talking about right now? What are some challenges? What are some areas of growth? What are some stories that can highlight those things? And then kind of take it from there. I will say that a lot of successful personal statements at the end somehow tie into how that brings you to law school, or how that brings you to wanting to be a lawyer. I have seen that not happen a couple of times, so I will not say it is absolutely mandatory, but often that is there's some sort of connection with, and this is how I learned that I wanted to go to law school, or these, overcoming this type of adversity has taught me that I want to help others fight injustice that they experience, like, et cetera, those sorts of things. So lots of fun ways to write personal statements.
Yeah. And I think we're maybe hitting the same topic again, but yeah, you are a unique person. Even if you don't think that you've done a lot of interesting things, I can guarantee you that that's probably not true. You probably don't understand what other people would find interesting about you. Right? It comes from that place of you can't really see it about yourself. And so asking friends, asking people you know what they like about you, or what stands out about you different from other people, is not a bad idea, right? Trying to get a real sense of what sort of experiences have shaped me is also important. It might be a tale as old as time to like say you were on the high school football team or whatever, or a cheerleader or whatever. But if those things were a big part of your life, right? If they changed who you are and led to you developing the goals that you have now, you should be talking about them, right? What makes an experience interesting on paper is not really the story, but the way it's told. I can say that as someone who writes a lot and helps other people write a lot. focus just on what motivated you, what changed you. Get that on paper and turn it into a paper. That's kind of the overall strategy. All right, we'll push it along to the next slide.
The importance of interview prep. This is probably true for everything in life. This is not just for law school interviews. You should always be prepared. Do not walk into an interview and it is like the first time you've thought about these questions and you are just winging it. That is not the key to success for interviews generally. It is also not the key to success for law school interviews. I will say not all law schools interview, not all T14 law schools interview, and law schools have really different approaches to interviewing. And I think they keep kind of changing. So my favorite is the Georgetown does interviews it's a group interview and they don't ask you any personal questions. They give you, I think it's like 3 different students files, and you are the admissions committee and you decide if that person, these 3 people should get in. And that's the whole interview, right? So preparing for an interview like that is going to look really different than preparing for a more traditional law school interview or interview generally. But you want to make sure that you have all of the main questions down, right? Like, tell me about yourself. Tell me why you want to go to law school. Tell me why you want to go to law school now. Tell me why you want to go to this law school. Where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years? Like all of those kind of basic questions you should have prepped the answers for, and you should feel really good about what answers you have prepared for those things. I would try and research the schools. There's lots of good information online. I hate to say it, on Reddit often, about what law schools are going to be asking, what the vibe of the interview is, who's interviewing you, all that stuff. That is also information you can get from your consultant if you book with Juris. But all that information can be really helpful because it can be quite disorienting to walk into an interview and you're prepared for an interview that looks one way and it is totally a different type of interview. And I think ultimately interviews, again, schools are looking for kind of different things, but they really want to see you kind of come alive. Lots of the applications, as much as you can only get so much from being on paper. And so sometimes law schools really just want to be like, what do they sound like? What do they, do they sound in person the way they sound on paper? Do they, are they as compelling of a person as I think that they will be? Are they, are they thoughtful? Are they well-spoken? Are they all of these things, right? That we've all gone through like 80 different drafts of our personal statement. So everything is exactly perfect. And interviews aren't quite like that. You get a little bit more of the like, let me think about that for a second. Or you hear someone's laugh or you see their, their hand movements. You just get kind of a different sense of the person. So just, you want to really be yourself. You don't want to be pretending you're someone else. I keep thinking of like Phoebe Buffay. If anyone has watched Friends, I'm dating myself. Like, do not act like Phoebe when she's meeting her in-laws, right? Like, do not put on a fake accent. Do not like pretend you're someone else. Like, that is not the way to win things over here. You really just want to be yourself and be authentically whoever that is.
Yeah, totally agreed. So we can just talk. We have a couple of common interview questions out here, right? The sort of thing that you should expect, right? There are going to be a question about why are you doing this, right? What are your goals out of this? Why does the law matter to you? Why this over everything else that you could do, right? And if you can't on the spot provide a pretty decent answer to that, that's going to be real painful for your admissions chances, okay? So these are the questions you absolutely need to be prepping for ahead of time, right? These motivational, personal questions. Like, nobody but you can explain why you want to be a lawyer, and you need to prepare some sort of answer. Situational behavioral questions are interesting, annoying. There's a lot of different thought processes on it, but these are things like, there are a few central ones, and we have one of like probably they're 2 of the most common behavioral questions, right? Can you describe a challenging situation you faced and how you've handled it? And I want to emphasize that is a chance to tell a story, right? This is a chance to tell a story that makes you look good. So to prepare for a question like this, you just really need to think of what sort of story, if I get asked about a question that's like this one, right, about dealing with something difficult and overcoming, have an event at least going in, right? Think ahead of time of interviews and be like, okay, this event for my life. You don't have to prepare a script, but at least know what you're going to talk about going in. Interviews can go in a lot of different directions. As Tamar explained, Georgetown obviously has a very interesting take on group interviews now. So you can't really expect unless you go and research. And I also agree with her. Unfortunately, Reddit is absolutely a great place to go and look for answers like, what is Georgetown's interview process? What is Chicago's interview process if you're applying for a Rubenstein? What is this process, this process? Go and research ahead of time. It's really important.
So you not only practice questions because you want to make sure you have your answers down, you also practice questions because you really want to make sure that you're projecting professionalism, confidence. One of the things so I unfortunately graduated law school during COVID things. And so I had to do a very serious, my interview for my Skadden Fellowship was on Zoom, it was the first year that they had done interviews on Zoom. It was always in person. They always fly everyone out for it. It's always this big deal. And all of a sudden it was like, okay, we're going to change it to being on the computer. And one of my mentors was like, one of the biggest things that I recommend when you're doing an online interview is whenever you're saying something that's maybe not the whole time, but when you're saying something that's really important or very profound, you're trying to get a key idea across, you want to try and look directly at the camera instead of at the little box where we're all looking at ourselves, right? I'm doing it right now. I'm never looking at the camera. I'm always looking at what I look like. That is something to practice. I heard it and it took me multiple practices to be like, okay, look at the green dot, look at the green dot. It's those sorts of things that you need to practice, right? You want to practice a firm handshake, practice with your mom, practice with your partner, practice with whoever. Make sure you have a good handshake if you're doing things in person. Make sure, this sounds silly, but I feel like I often have my things in the wrong hand. And so I'm switching hands and trying to handshake. You want to get some of those things down so it feels less awkward. You want to make sure that you're making good eye contact in person, but online also as much as you can. You want to pick out your outfit ahead of time. Don't look disheveled. All of those kind of basic things, again, that are not just about law school interviews. I think they're about all interviews always, but don't sleep on those things here. Andrea, I think we are passing it back to you.
You are. This is fantastic. Let me just quickly do a check-in. I want to see how everyone's feeling. If you could let us know in the chat, maybe a thumbs up, some sort of emoji. We want to hear from you. Additionally, if you have any questions, awesome, thumbs up. Thanks, Sydney. Cool. Okay, keep them coming, Luke. Ladies, we're on the right path. Awesome. If you have any questions, again, I want to encourage you to leverage that Q&A button, that Q&A on the side of your screen. We want to hear from you. Tamar and Mika will hopefully be able to answer these questions. And if by some chance it's not a question that we can give you an answer for on the spot, we will 100% get back to you one way or another. So again, I want to drive that home for everybody. I don't see any questions right now. So Tamar, Mika, I will hand it right back to you. And just again, let's continue using that Q&A.
Okay. So when you think about what you want your resume to convey, I would say it's one of activity, right? Law schools like to see people that work hard, are into things, that do lots of things. When you think about the specific things that you should be doing, obviously something that indicates an interest in the law is a great idea. We already kind of mentioned that earlier: internship, volunteer work. I had one student that just literally goes to a prison and teaches prisoners to read. But I think that really sold well. Something they did for 2.5 years, once a week, from rain or shine, and demonstrated a really genuine commitment to public interest work, to actually volunteering and doing things for others. And so even if it wasn't the most legal thing, it's still at least clearly conveying his dedication to doing this sort of thing with his life, right? Leadership roles are obviously valuable. Everybody always wants to grab leadership roles. What I would say is, I think the sort of public interest / law tilt is more important than the leadership tilt. And if you have to choose between the two, I would prefer something that gets you towards law school or public interest work. Format your resume well. Like, don't be doing something that's 10 years out of date. Law schools, just looks a little like you underprepared. Like, you didn't care enough to look and see what is standard right now and to build a resume that actually followed that standard. So do try to be up to date on how you're building the resume. Obviously, organization-wise, there's lots of different ways people do it. Work with somebody, maybe with somebody here, about how to best convey what you're doing and how do you showcase your stuff, the stuff about you that stands out the most. And formatting can actually help a lot with that. So that's something to think about. Yeah. Excuse me.
So you want to choose relevant extracurriculars. I think this goes right off of what Mika was just saying. You don't want things that are super old. You don't want things, I generally say high school things should not be on your resume unless you've continued doing them through college, right? Like if you've been doing some sort of volunteer activity for 15 years, yes, that date should stay on there. And also that's great because that shows that you have a deep commitment to this thing. Do not drop that off your resume. But if it's something that awards you got in high school or some leadership thing that you had in high school, those generally kind of drop off for law school resumes. You want to select activities that reflect what you're passionate about. Don't snooze on putting any legal experiences that you've had or volunteer stuff. I think sometimes people are like, oh, it didn't take up 10 hours of my week every week, so it shouldn't go on there. That's not necessarily true either. You want to make sure that you're not selling yourself short by not including those items, right? And you want to make sure that you're highlighting leadership roles. So find ways to, if you went from being a member to being vice president of something, right? Make sure that you're including that information, that you weren't just a member, but you were also the vice president. Put the dates that you were vice president. Put the different activities that you did between membership and being VP in the bullets, right? You want to really highlight continuity of activities, but also that you grew in those activities.
So yeah, building directly back on that, right? What you want to emphasize is the stuff that is most relevant to what law and law school is like. Really like this middle bullet point about emphasize responsibilities that involve critical thinking and problem solving, right? And that can come in a lot of ways. A lot of people don't even realize how much genuine critical thinking their job involved until they go back and think about it. So when you're writing those descriptions, think about what sort of responsibilities got passed on to you. What were the things that you kind of took the lead in handling, right? What sort of, if you're at a club, did you lead a particular initiative? Did you help organize a particular conference, right? Things like that where you are taking charge and really building something yourself are really worth emphasizing. Well, Tamar already hit the idea, illustrate growth, right? Illustrate that you are achieving more or doing more over time, if possible. That's always, always useful. And definitely feature anything that heavily involves writing. Obviously, law is a lot of writing. Well, maybe the practice of law for large part is not all about writing anymore, but law school certainly is. Most of your exams are timed essay writing. And so being a good writer is pretty fundamental to being successful in law school. So that's definitely worth including too. Yeah.
So waitlists are, hopefully you will all get into all of your schools, period, full stop. if you do not get into all of your schools, but you get waitlisted at some of your schools, there are things that you can do to hopefully help get yourself off of a wait list, right? Letters of continued interest are kind of an expected thing to make sure that you are top of mind for admissions officers. They give admissions officers like updates on what you're doing. They express that you're still interested in going to the school, right? Because what law schools don't want is they don't want to give offers to people who are not going to take them up on their admission offer. They want to keep their numbers low. They don't want to waste their time giving you an admission offer and then having you kind of weigh all your options. And then if you say no, then they need to go to the next person in line, right? Admissions is really it's a game. You have a certain number of slots that you need to fill, and you kind of want to balance the class in terms of lots of different data. And so they're kind of trying to, especially when the wait list is coming around, they're trying to pluck like the perfect people who will say yes and who definitely want to go there to complete their class. And so you want to be the person that they think of, right? You want them to go, oh, there's that person that keeps talking about how we're their number one choice and they definitely want to say yes. And, you know, we're in their favorite city and they're so excited to be here, and like, great, let's just give it to them because we know they're going to say yes and they'd be a perfect fit. That's what you want the admissions officer to think. So letters of continued interest will get you there and are a big piece of playing the waitlist game. If you have any new achievements or improvements in your initial application, if you take the LSAT and get an improved LSAT score, if you get like an updated GPA because you're still in school, if you get any sorts of awards, you got initiated into Phi Beta Kappa, any of those things, those are things to mention in your letters of continued interest. Stay positive and definitely consider what all of your alternative plans might be. Waitlists can sometimes they drag through the first day of school, which is very, very late. You will want to be really honest with yourself about like, at what point will this not make sense for me? I am not someone that likes change very much. If you told me on the first day of school that I had missed my first day of school and got off the wait list, I would probably say, I'm not going. I can't, that is too much stress for me. I am not moving to a new city. I am fine where I am. I would rather not do it. I have seen other people do it though. I think someone did it at Michigan, actually, my 1L year. They like got in off the wait list somewhere after the first day of school. They cut their lease. They moved to a new city. They started law school somewhere else. You just have to be really honest with yourself about what your priorities are and how flexible you are willing to be and up until what time. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just really personal preference.
Well, I guess I will just follow up on that slide by saying that I was waitlisted at UChicago. I wrote 4 letters of continued interest over 4 months and was admitted in late April. So this does work. I can personally attest to the fact that it does work. Yeah. Okay, we can keep moving forward. Oh, I hit that with too hard. So deferral process. Deferrals are rare, but law schools definitely will consider them, especially if you have very clear reasons for it. So deferral just lets you postpone the year that you will actually be attending the school, right? You are admitted on a tentative basis for future years as well. Some people choose to use the time of the deferral to strengthen their resume, right? To strengthen their application and potentially apply to other schools the following year. Schools that might be higher ranked or might be willing to give bigger scholarships. I would definitely suggest you be doing something valuable during your deferral year. I have most often heard of deferrals for things like Teach for America and other public interest work, right? Law schools are very happy to say, we want you at the school, take 2 years to do Teach for America and come join us when you're ready, right? If your resume looks great, your stats are great, they are going to be more than happy to let you do that. So yeah, if you have something that you really want to achieve before law school, and somehow that comes through and you're able to go pursue that goal, just be upfront once you get the admission and talk to them about the deferral. Yeah.
The only other thing I will add about deferrals that shocked me was that Michigan, my year, had over-enrolled us by an ungodly number of students. And so we all got an email that was like, if anyone wants to defer for any reason whatsoever, we are handing them out like candy. So it will not. And at the time, I had actually wanted to defer. I wanted to do another year of my AmeriCorps. And I had talked to someone who had given me the bad advice of don't ask. Like, it's not worth asking. No one ever gets deferrals. It's not worth it. You need to go this year. And in hindsight, I totally regretted not asking, because by the time the law school had sent that email being like, please defer, we need people to defer, I had already signed a lease. And I was like, I'm not paying to get out of this lease. I'm going to law school. So it is worth asking if you have plans, if you want to make plans, if you have something in mind for that year. Law school will always be there. Once you go to law school and once you're a lawyer, it is hard to get off of the conveyor belt and take time to do a year to do something else, right? So you should feel empowered to do that now, because an opportunity to do it really won't come up again. Deferral strategy. Like Mika was saying, you want to use that time to enhance your application. I will say, though, that enhancing your application can vary. The definition of what that means can vary. I had a friend who spent their deferral year traveling the country playing their harmonica, and that the admissions officer thought that was the best use of their deferral year. I think I would have been a little bit shy to tell anyone that that's what I was doing for my deferral year, but it totally worked, and he had the best time, and the admissions officer thought it was the coolest thing you could do with a deferral year. So, and in fairness, I think you could spin a really interesting story about how traveling around the country and, meeting lots of people has really has made you rethink lots of things, and, makes you more well-rounded, and et cetera, et cetera. So think about the purposeful ways you're trying to enhance your application. And you can think kind of creatively about what that means, as long as you feel good about feeling like you have kind of a story or a narrative to tell around that. Keep in touch with the admissions office. Like I said last time, they want to know that you're there. They want to know that you're thinking about them. They want to know that you're still excited to go. All of those things are really important to admissions officers. And then reflect on and address any areas that might need improvement before reapplying or in your kind of year, because now is the time.
So, letters of recommendation. Most schools, or at least this was the standard when I applied, and I think it is pretty typical, are going to ask for 3 letters, 2 that are academic sources, 1 can be personal or academic. Try to cultivate relationships with somebody at your school. Professors, right, whose topics you really enjoy. Go to people's office hours. Become somebody that they're actually familiar with, right? When you get a letter of recommendation, it's relatively obvious how much the person knows you. And if a professor is just perfunctorily writing a letter for somebody who got an A in their class, good that you got an A, but it's not going to impress anybody reading the letter, right? Because they can tell that this professor doesn't really know you. They just gave you a good grade once or even twice. So go to office hours, interact with them. Your personal recommendation letter should be really, really strong, right? This is your personal letter. You chose this. There's no necessity for this person. You could have chosen anyone in your life. So choose someone that knows you well and is going to be able to speak to what's great about you as a person and why they think, they became friends with you, they started investing in their relationship with you, and they think a law school should want to invest in you, right? Choose somebody that really knows you and can write about that. Yeah. Okay.
Make sure you spend some time researching law schools. You want to no, first of all, a lot of the schools have why do you want to go to this law school supplemental essays, and it is really easy to spot which essays have been copied and pasted from other schools, right? I've seen many of them. Some of them, they don't look good, guys. They do not look good. You do not want the admissions officer to be like, this is so generic. This could be about any school, right? You want to talk about specific curriculum features they have, classes they have, professors they have, programs that they're really proud of, right? So for example, like UVA is super proud of their pro bono program. Great. I don't know any other school that cares that much about their pro bono program. So if you are trying to write a why UVA essay, it would be totally fair game and good to write about their pro bono program because it's something they care a lot about. If you went and wrote about the pro bono program at Michigan, I think the admissions officer would probably laugh at you because no one fills out the pro bono hours at Michigan. It's kind of a joke. Not that we don't do lots of pro bono things. It's just the program itself is not very strong at like capturing the hours that we do. And so you want to do some digging and research into what each school really cares about, right? Because lots of schools have lots of the same things on their website. You need to kind of go one level deeper to be like, okay, yes, everyone has a pro bono program. Does everyone care about the pro bono program? Apparently not. Everyone has, something to do with international law. Do all the schools equally care about their international law program? No, some of them care a lot more than others. So you want to do digging to make sure that you are really understanding kind of the core values of the school and the things that they take pride in, so you can make sure that it's a match for you, but also so you can talk about those things when you have an interview or when you're writing an essay about them. And I think that goes for school culture too, right? Some schools take certain pieces of their culture super seriously. There are like certain schools that have certain buzzwords that they love. You will want to throw those buzzwords around during an interview or when you're writing an essay, right? And not all schools use the same buzzwords. So those are things to be aware of, and look at the schools like Twitter, talk to former students, talk to alums, do whatever digging you can, because they're not going to hide the ball on those things. So those are things that'll come up again and again that you can pick up on if you spend enough time looking.
So, final checklist. This is obviously a big undertaking involving a lot of moving parts, including your LSAT studies, your test dates, any potential second test date. If you're getting tutoring, mixing that in. Then you have to write your personal statement, YX essays for the schools that you're going to write those for, diversity statement for the schools that you're going to write that for, and you have to keep track of the timelines. So get organized. Excel exists for a reason. Time tracker or date trackers in your Google Calendar exists for a reason. Put this stuff in somewhere that will keep you up to date on it. Create genuine benchmarks, right? I'm going to get this done, or at least this part of this done by this date. Don't hate yourself for missing them, but try your best to actually honor them, right? The more regimented you are about this stuff, honestly, the easier it'll become too. Right? Be less stressful. If you have to study for the LSAT from 5 to 7 p.m. 4 nights a week, you know that those 4 nights a week, you're going to study from 5 to 7 p.m. There's no willpower involved. There's no overcoming anything. It's on your schedule. You're going to do it. So this is kind of really how you should approach the process, because it's also how you should approach law school when you're there. So, all right, push on.
Common mistakes to avoid. I think a lot of this is going to go without saying, but incomplete or incorrect information does not make you look good. You want to make sure that you've completed all the sections. You want to make sure that they're all accurate. Sometimes I see students who have put one thing on a resume and a different thing in a personal statement that doesn't totally match. Like the timeline doesn't make sense for an activity that they're talking about or something like that. You want to make sure everything, cross your T's, dot your I's. Make sure that all your documents are in, including your transcripts and letters of recommendation. I have seen letters of recommendation hold entire applications up. It is not fun to watch. It is so not fun to watch. You want to get on top of those letters of recommendation. And now that I am a professor, I feel like I can say professors are the worst with deadlines. They do not follow any deadlines ever. They procrastinate terribly. So make sure that you are you are just underneath the annoying threshold for them, right? You want to remind them, you want to be friendly, you want to remind them again, you want to check in and see how they're doing and also ask if you can be helpful in any way, if they need anything else from you, but you need them to get that letter of recommendation in so that the whole application is not being held up. You also don't want to have like a generic or unfocused personal statement. I think that's actually true about all of your essays. You don't want anything where it feels like you could have copied and pasted it for a different person. Like, I should not be able to write the same personal statement that my friend could write. I should also not be writing an essay about why I want to go to Harvard and be able to copy and paste entire sentences that would work for why I want to go to Yale, right? Those essays should be distinct and they should make the reader think like, okay, they really spent time researching our school. They really want to go to this school. I feel persuaded that they're really being authentic and they want this. So those are a couple of things to avoid.
So finances. I'm going to try not to be ultra bleak here, but I'll just give you the exact same statement I always give my students. Imagine that you are 3 months into your legal career. You have $250,000 in debt, and the most powerful equity partner in the office is sexually harassing you. What do you do? That is not a hypothetical. That happened to one of my friends. 100%. I went through some stuff too, not necessarily in the same vein, but debt is a trap. So get scholarships, right? Don't go to the most highest ranked school that you got into. I made that trap. Go to the school that will make the transition to real life post law school way less painful. It won't saddle you with the sort of debt that traps you in large sense. So research how much each of these schools cost. Think about cost of living on top of that, because there's a big difference between going to Columbia in New York City and going to UVA in Charlottesville in terms of cost of living, right? And on the scale of $10,000+ per year, I would bet. Think about what schools you would go into if you got a full ride there, right? And don't just discount that because a higher ranked school comes calling. Really take your LSAT prep seriously. And really, if you're junior, sophomore, freshman, really take that GPA seriously. The better you pump those two things, the much higher chance you're going to get scholarship A. I had a terrible GPA. I was a super splitter with a 3.25, 179. If I had a 3.9, I could have gotten a full ride from UChicago, right? One of those things I look back on and just think like, oh, maybe I should have partied a little less and taken life a little more seriously in undergrad, because it would have saved me a lot of pain and a lot of money later on in life. So really, really think about these implications. And I hate to do a soft pitch here, but really think about an LSAT tutor. Again, I'll say every point on the LSAT's worth more or less like 10 grand in scholarship money. So when you think about the per hour cost of an LSAT tutor compared to that, it's looking like a pretty good trade. All right, turn it over for the Q&A.
Hello. Thank you for the awesome discussion. Mika, can you say that once more? And something, and I think this will give our audience a chance to write it down. The LSAT score, one LSAT point being equivalent to, did you say $10,000?
Yeah, about 10 grand in scholarship money. Yeah, that's like the general rule of thumb that I've always been told. And it does hold true. Like, I look at my own like results, my admissions results, and you can just see like even with that 3.25, you drop 8 slots and I have a 1-year scholarship. You drop another 8, I have 2-year scholarship. You drop another 8, and I have a full ride. And I chose to go the most expensive one. When in reality, I think I should have gone to Michigan, which was.
I know. I feel like we had such perfect opposite experiences. I graduated debt free. And I say all the time, it's life changing. It is really, really life changing.
Especially if you want to do public interest work.
Yep.
Especially if you want to do public interest work.
I think this is a really good time to answer a LSAT related question. We have 2 questions in the chat. I know we are over time, so I want to be mindful of that. But Luke asks, what should you do if you take the LSAT for a second time and do worse? Do you recommend paying for score preview?
I do think a cancellation of a worse score is better than leaving it on there. That said, if your plan is to take it a 3rd time and your score then is higher than both of those scores, or significant, especially if it's significantly higher, I don't think it will count much against you. I really think it kind of all turns on what you do with the 3rd LSAT sitting.
Fantastic. Sydney asks, and again, sorry, this is not necessarily LSAT related, but when would you all recommend? What would you all recommend about addendums? When should you write them?
Should I give the "it depends" famous law school lawyer answer? I think it really does depend. I have a student writing. I have a couple of students this time writing ones for run-ins with law enforcement that need some explanation. I think those are probably my big ones that I'm seeing this year. Those are ones that generally need, like a character and fitness addendum. Mika, what have you seen?
Well, I guess I wonder, like, what do they mean by addendums? But yeah, if you have something that is a genuine character or fitness issue and you know it is, then I would go ahead and address it now. Not just because it'll be better applying to law school, but it'll look a lot better when you apply to bar admission. They are not going to like it if you didn't disclose a genuine character and fitness issue when you were coming into the school, and they may in fact they probably will in fact require you to go back to the school and tell them this. And if the school says we revoke your degree on that basis, you're just kind of shit out of luck. I can't remember that ever happening, but I do know it is possible for that to happen. I remember I forgot to include an internship on my college resume that wasn't. I had to go back and tell them about something. Literally, it was the smallest thing in the world. So you can imagine what they'll do with big stuff. LSAT score addendums, I generally disfavor those. You can definitely write an addendum that says I'm taking in November or taking in January. Please wait to, reject me until that score comes in. And obviously the implication is if they want to go ahead and accept you, that's cool, but don't reject you until they get the second score. That's chill. Lots of law, that happens constantly. Law schools are perfectly fine with it, no problem at all. But if you write an addendum explaining why you did really bad on the LSAT, you better have a really good reason to be writing the addendum. A really good one, like someone close to you died, I came down with COVID, right? Something genuinely debilitating, not just life got stressy and I didn't study hard enough. Any other addendum types I'm forgetting? I think that would be kind of my general idea on them.
And Sydney, if you could let us know if that answered your question, if there's a specific case, we'll try and get back to it. I know we are over the hour. There's one more question. I'd love to get this one. I think is really great. They're all very great. Okay, yes, it was spot on. Thank you so much. We got the addendum question solved, ladies. So how does the application process differ for applicants with 3 to 4 years of professional work experience? Is 1 academic reference and 2 professional references advisable?
Some schools, a fair number of schools may require 2 academic regardless. They just won't care. But I will say, if they can see that it's obvious on your resume you've been working for a few years, they're going to care less about them, right? Because it's who maintains relationships with college professors for years later, especially if you move to a different part of the country. So I think as you gain more professional experiences, that those two academic ones just become less and less important. Yeah.
Some schools also allow more than 3. I think I had 4 or 5 that I included whenever they would allow for more. And so you can always have, you know, any of the additional ones be professional recommendations that probably can speak more to what you've been doing more recently, and include those if more than 3 are allowed.
Awesome. That is it for questions for tonight. I think this is a really great point to wrap up tonight's conversation. Tamar, Mika, thank you for being present. Thank you for the wonderful conversations. Audience, thank you for being here with us tonight. And these are really fantastic questions. If you have any more questions, please don't hesitate to just respond to the email. You would have gotten a couple of reminders. So definitely reach out. And if I personally can't answer it, of course, Tamar, Mika, and all of our other wonderful consultants and LSAT tutors will be able to do so. I think this is a great time to wrap it up. I hope everyone has a wonderful evening and take care. We'll see you on the next webinar.
Bye.
Thanks.